During the Battle of Sekihara against Ieyasu and his army, our main protagonist, called Shimadzu, Oyohisa manages to mortally injure Nayamasa but is critically wounded in the process. Nayamasa-masa's army is forced to retreat to the Toyohisa. Is perseverance and resilience as he walks from the battlefield wounded and bleeding. Toyohisa finds himself transported to a white hallway of dew. Ors is a bespectacled man at the desk, waits for him as he is about to attack the mysterious man. Doyle is sucked into one of the doors and transported to a new world. He is dropped into a field unconscious when two elven children, speaking a strange language, find Toyohisa and decide to bring him to a castle ruins, which we discover is the hideout for two other drifters. Drifters are a group of historically famous figures from various periods of the Earth's timeline. Toyohisa's wounds are stitched up, and after waking up from a dream he meets a man called Oda Nobunaga Daimyo Daniel, who was killed 18 years prior to Toyohisa involvement in the Battle of Sekihara, and another man called Nasu Yoichi, an effeminate archer who died almost 4 centuries ago. The trio discusses how they met the same bespectacled man who brought them to the unknown world outside of their hideout. A female spy monitors the drifters and is contacted by a man, Byron Magical Crystal Ball, to check on her status. The man in white decides to meet the drifters and mobilize their men, known as the Octopus Organization, to prepare for the upcoming war with the race of reincarnate. It's called ends, an opposing force advocating for the destruction of the world in a desert wasteland. Two drifters, called Hannibal and Scipio, are in the middle of a heated argument while a member of the Octave Restore Gunna station called Ham observed them from afar. Ham is ordered by the man in white led Abe to bring the drifters to him in preparations for the war against the Ends. Meanwhile, the elven village, located near Toyohisa's group of drifters, is attacked and set on fire by soldiers from the Order Empire for associating with the drifters. Alerted by the smell of battle, Toyohisa heads to the village to rescue the elves in order to repay his debt to the young elves called Marcia and Mark for helping him earlier. Joined by Nobunaga and Yoichi, they easily defeat the elves' oppressors, enraged by the carnage and cruelty inflicted upon the elves by the Empire's soldiers too. Yohisa so brutally beats the commander knight called Era with the sheath of his sword before convincing the elves to kill Eren themselves. In the white corridor of doors, the bespectacled man, who we discover is called Murasaki, is visited by his nemesis called Easy, who marks his efforts to send grifters to the unknown world to combat her ends, who have begun invading the southern regions of the world in the kingdom of Carneades. Abe and Ham try to convince the commanders of the defensive troops to let Scipio and Hannibal take charge of their army. However, the leaders refuse to give the two drifters command over their troops, seeing them as nothing more than useless old men unable to reason with the soldiers. Abe decides to withdraw the octopus and the drifters from the country as the Ends in their army, consisting of dragons, goblins, and other non-human races, begin their attack. The leader of the Ends, called the Black King, sends a man called Jakarta and 2 women called Jean and Anastasia on the battlefield. Dian questions a man called Minamoto to see if his allegiances with the drifters or the Ends. Minamoto vaguely states he will go to the side that interests him the most. Soon after, a World War II fighter pilot called Nayashi descends into the World Bara corridor inside his aircraft to wild by the circumstances. Nayashi engages the Black King's dragons, thus indicating himself as a drifter. With the aid of a couple other drifters called Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, Ham, Scipio, and Hannibal escape from Carneades to join up with Doyle. This is group the Black King RS the Ends to find the drifters and kill them. Meanwhile, the female spy monitoring Toyohi's group is discovered by him and his companions, the spy called Alman, who informs the drifters that they have been brought to the New World to fight against the Ends, though the trio quickly rejects the idea, much to her surprise. Alman, who explains to them that their purpose as drifters is to save the world from being annihilated by the ants. To accomplish this, she informs them that the octopus are tasked with gathering the drifters together and appealing to the kings and feudal lord as of the various states and countries to give command over their armies to the drifters. However, Nobunaga is skeptical that He lords would allow outsiders to take charge of their armies. Instead, he proposes that the drifters led by Toyohisa take over the Ore Empire. Meanwhile, following his success at Karnad's, the Black King tends to his wounded troops and orders a man called Rasputin to spread the news of Karnad's this defeat to recruit more soldiers in their army back in the olden village. Doyle this group offered to assist the elves with their fight against war to reclaim their state, though Toyle has set and nominal go fight over the leadership arrangements. The eldest son of the murdered village chief called Sierra interrupts them and pleads for their help. Toyohisa eventually agrees to take the role of the commander and begins to set a trap for the workforce is set to arrive in 3 days. On the third day, a force of 200 Ore troops march into the village only to find it uninhabited. In camp in the trees outside of the village, the drifters and elves prepared to strike the word soldiers at nightfall. Prior to the ambush plan by the drifters, nominal uses corpses and various human waste to create a pet after Toyosa buries the heads of the deceased as a sign of respect. Meanwhile, when she begins to train the elves in archery and is surprised to learn that they have an innate aptitude for it. As night sinks in, the Ore troops noticed that the village's water well was filled with excrement. At nightfall, Toyohisa has sent the elves launch their attack on the word so Dyers as nominal reforms in enclosure to trap the work troops and continuously bombard them with waste-laden arrows. Toyohisa beheads the commander of the troops, prompting the remaining soldiers to flee in the forest, which he kills the fleeing soldiers who fall victim to excrement. Instead traps after their successful battle. Toyohisa urges the elves to rescue the female elves disguised as our troops. The drifters and elves make their way to the local magistrate's fort and locate the women. Much to his horror and disgust, Toyohisa discovers that the women have been used as meaning slaves by the art soldiers and bows to slaughter them all in retribution. After successfully taking over the fortress, Nabinager rummages through the magistrate's office for vital documents that his inquiry only reveals the nominal that the founder of the word empire was a man called Adolf Hitler, who committed suicide shortly after establishing the country 50 years ago, receiving word that Toyohisa plans to execute the word soldiers for assaulting the female elves. Nobunaga stops him and gives the execution order himself, not wanting the latter to dirty his DS with blood. Toyohisa as a punch Nobunaga for interfering, and to reach an agreement to let Toyo has to do whatever he feels is right. In the future, the drifters return the women back to their respective villages with a proclamation, which contains information about the heavy losses suffering from waging wars with numerous states. As a result, elven villages across the land begin to revolt and join the drifters. In order to capital city, the city's council discusses the losing wars in neighboring states, particularly their war against the merchant guild of Guban and Count Jeremy, a powerful nobleman and former ally of Hitler, realizes its impending downfall and chooses to seek an alliance with the drifters. At nightfall, Jean Gills and several soldiers of the Black King's army approach the drifters' hideout. Jean Gills and the cavalry of the Black King's army attacked the drifters' camp after evacuating the elderly women and children. Toyohisa confronts Jean, who he mistakes for a man, which he faces off against Gills in the forest. Nobunaga and the elves take care of the cavalry with Alman, whose assistance Toyota is able to defeat but refuses to kill her when he realizes that she is a woman. Meanwhile, he struggles in his battle against Jules due to the latter's inhuman strength and durability before Yoshi is nearly killed. Bush and the Sundance Kid arrive at the scene using their Gatling gun to destroy Il's body, and Savior Change Deals barely survived the brutal onslaught, much to the drifters' shock seeing Jean being rescued by the Dragon Riders in the Black King's army. Gills dies with a smile and promises to wait for Jean to join him in the afterlife as he disintegrates into salt. After reuniting with Amand, even produces himself to the drifters as the leader of the Octave Restore canonization in a secluded area. He reflects on his battle with Gills when he is approached by Minamoto, who mocks his former subordinate for following Mikito despite committing dishonorable acts during the Genpei War. While under his command, a distressed he tells me the Minamoto he will never take orders from him again, but Minamoto merely laughs at him before he departs. Meanwhile, Abe tells Nominal he was brought to the New World to help combat the Ends. Toyohisa returns and informs the group that he knocked Jean unconscious in a nearby well. Sammy reprimands Toyohisa for allowing Jean to escape due to her gender, but Toyohisa is determined to uphold his principles and not become mere Saki spawn. The next day, Scipio, who was separated from his group during the ride to meet with Toyohi's group, encounters Nashi, who has been appointed the Sky God, to a tribe of anthropomorphic dogs back at the Drifters' camp. Butch and Sundance Kid explain the mechanics behind their firearms to another dog, who becomes ecstatic at the notion of producing more modern firearms. Nabanagar Reve ALS to a concerned neighbor that he wishes to create a multiracial federation with Toyo, says their leader. At nightfall, Toyohisa leads his group to free the doors for more, while a Butch and Sundance Kid leave to search for Scipio and continue their investigation on the Ends. Well, Count Jerem and his aides journey to the Elven village to meet with the Drifters. Toyohashi's group attacks the Order Empire's largest armory in Gavel to save the dwarves, utilizing the gunpowder that Nobunaga has concocted with the elves' assistance. Toyohisa leads the charge against the troops' stationed there. However, they are unable to enter the walled town after the word soldiers close the entrance gate. Hannibal gives not a nod to the idea to use your witch's arrows and almond stonewall spells to cast a staircase alongside the gate, enabling Toyohisa's group to invade the town and free the doors, since the doors have been suffering from starvation during their captivity. Toyohisa orders meals to be prepared for them instead of taking down the castle defenders. Toyohisa negotiates with the remaining more troops to surrender peacefully and allows them to escape. Though he slays the commander when he prepares to pursue the fleeing troops, a habit he developed when serving Minamoto in the past. Toyohisa has to stop him and tells him that he does not have to follow dishonorable orders anymore, since this is their war. Much to you, which is the light. Meanwhile, a member of the Octopus organization and his partner called Doug spy on the Ends at Carniades. They are horrified to learn that the Black King taught primitive agriculture to the monsters that will someday replace the humans once the Ends have eliminated mankind. The Black King attempts to recruit one of the 6 great dragons, the Bronze Dra. Gone into joining his army, but is met with contempt and refusal by the latter for subjugating his dragon brother and his pets and his army. Using his ability to replicate the cells of any life form, the Black King tortures the bronze dragon by causing his body to suffer from cancerous growth. Gain his compliance. Afterwards, Rasputin presents the completion of a simple alphabet and the syncretic religion for the demi-humans to learn to help establish a unified multiracial community, as per the Black King's wishes. Meanwhile, Jean awakens from a coma after her fight with Toyohisa is son and is informed by Anastasia that Jills is dead. When enraged, Jean vows to avenge her fallen comrade by killing Toyohisa, to which Anastasia scolds her for her recklessness before promising to let her do as she pleases when the time comes. In Gattaca, another number request that the Ors begin forging muskets for their army to use in future battles. The next day, Count Jeremy and his companions arrive in Gatalco to meet with the Drifters, sending his aides to test Toyohisa to see if they are worthy to form an alliance. Jeremy reveals to Almanu that he was a Drifter and that he wants to sell the Or Empire to the Drifters before orders destroyed by other warring countries. In order to accomplish this, Jeremy recommends that the Drifters' planet cooped out to seize or does their territory, which is a seizure and removal of a government and its powers. Walja Emmy aides sneak the Drifters and their army into the Word Empire's capital city. St. Jeremy holds an emergency council meeting with the lords tasked with overseeing war and informs them that he is selling the country to the Drifters. He attempts to coerce the noblemen to surrender peace. Oli, however, is disrupted by Rasputin, who possesses 2 of the nobles, to reveal that the Black King is also planning to seize the Order Empire for his campaign. After being humiliated by Toyohisa and Nobunaga, Rasputin retreats, and the Black King sends Digicala and his troops to combat the Dri. Turs in the capital, shifting their focus from seizing more to destroying it to prevent the Drifters from obtaining to assist with the ensuing battle. St. Jeremy gives his personal army over to another Nobunaga to act as the army's gunner squad. Will Toyohisa and you would he leave the DW Arvs and elves into the fray after the drifters successfully take out the End's vanguard. Angered Yukata heads on to the battlefield. As the drifters and their army decimate the End's troops, Yukata gives orders for his soldiers to break into smaller units and disperse in the streets, setting the city ablaze while heading towards capital buildings in Jakarta and Toyohisa to meet in the street and engage one another in a deadly duel, with the Jakarta using the ghostly images of dead Shinsengumi to attack Toyohisa. Meanwhile, Nobunaga and Hannibal decided that instead of asing the End's troops, they will trap their enemies in the capital buildings when they arrive and kill them, with Yu Witch's squad and Albany's reluctant assistance with their army. Destroyed. The Black King orders Hikata to withdraw from his fight against Toil, his son, who was left battle. Injured back in Carnades. Rasputin apologizes to the Black King for their failure for seizing more, though the Black King is pleased that they were able to cripple the capital city. Engage the drifters' strength. Ikesha thinks back to hearing Up in August voice during his encounter with Rasputin and decides to join the Ends in the hope of killing another dog in the next battle. And this brings the enemy to an end. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss out on another video. Until next time, take care.